Okay. I think that we can get going. How are you feeling, Rosaline?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. How are you? And just to
I'm
be
good
sure,
and
yeah, I wanted to be sure
sure.
how to pronounce your name. Maneo. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Maneo.
Oh, Manel.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I want to welcome everybody that is here with us on this really beautiful evening, at least on South African time, Southern African time. It's really, 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 really lovely. I have the honor of hosting our poet, and if this is your first time attending a Red Wheelbarrow reading, we have a section in which our featured poet has free reign and will be taking us through her poems, and then we'll take a little break. And then the second section is and then we'll have like a short sort of like Q&A session, and we'll feel it out in terms of time based on everyone's questions, and then we'll take a tiny break, and then we'll have the open mic section. So if you have um, a poem to share. You don't have to be a writer, you don't have to be a poet. It doesn't have to be your own work. It can also be the work of someone that you admire. I really welcome you to share your work. So, with that, I think we can get going. Um, so, Rosaline, I'd love to read your biography and then I'll just hand it over to you. I'll step back and then you can just take us through your poems
Okay.
as and when you please.
Okay.
Um, and also, could I ask about the pronunciation of your surname so that I don't get that wrong?
Oh, my surname is Anya-Okirie, so Mgbodichinma is my middle name, but Roseline
Mm-hmm.
is fine. Yeah, Roseline is fine.
Okay. Okay. Anya-Okirie is your surname. Okay.
Great attempt here.
Okay. Amazing. Rosaline Anya-Okirie is a Nigerian writer and lawyer. Her writing explores the intricate relationships between nature, womanhood, emotion, bodies, and desire. She is an alumna of the Library of Africa and the African Diaspora West African Writers Residency Program. Her work has been published in Estella Magazine, Brittle Paper, A Long House, Duke University Press, North Dakota Quarterly, Tampa Press, JFA Human Rights Journal, the Willow Herb Review, Agbowo, and Spring, among others. She blogs at mbogdichi.com. As always, the reading by the feature poet will be followed by an open mic session for poets from the audience. So you really are welcome to read from your own work, like I said, or the work of anyone. So yeah, without further ado, I'll just hand it over to you. And we're so, so excited to have you with
Yeah, I'm so
us.
excited to be reading. How many minutes do I have again?
I think we can feel out maybe like half an hour to 40 minutes and then
Okay.
leave a little bit for question and answer, and then we'll switch over to the open mic section. How do you feel? I think
Okay, great,
45 minutes
great.
is like a good sort of spot that we can move there.
Okay. So, hi
Cool.
everyone, welcome. I'm so excited to read. So, I'm going to be reading poems from my forthcoming chapbook titled A Body Inspires, which is really a collection of poems where I look at things from the lens of spices, particularly the body. We'll be reading some poems from there, maybe one or two poems that I wrote that are not in the chapbook, but I'll just be walking you through some of the poems and maybe just explain a little about the process of writing some of them. And yeah, so let me just pull them up. Please let me know if you can't hear me at any point. I feel like my network is a bit wonky. Okay, can you hear me? Are we good?
Yes, we can.
All good on our side, yeah.
Okay. So the first poem I'm going to read is titled Sonnet in Spice. And this is because I love to write about desire. I love to write about love. I love to write about things that our body experiences. So it's titled Sonnet in Spice, and I'm reading now. May we be tasty, may we be soft. Many magic days make our kind of decade. For this myth, love, I knelt and prayed. Your deep luster touch came at no cost. In your body, the depth of my eyes is lost. I call you beautiful, and your smile gets me laid. King and queen, we do not checkmate. Our soul ministers, our bodies are organ loft. My womanhood, sweet like cinnamon, has frequent use for you. Gloomy mornings expect your vengeful stroke. In a wet dream, my hair is strong in a bun, and my thirsty essence has no clue if your tasteful hands will this neck choke. So that's the first poem. The second poem I'll be reading is titled, sorry, I'm trying to fix my screen so I can see myself and everybody. Okay, the second poem I'm going to be reading is titled Repenting. And it goes, body made flesh and dwelling among us, the sweet smelling savour of a breathless sacrifice. There is a street where the righteous lick their fingers, sweet as sin. Charlotte sounds like a name used to describe a sex worker. Mathematically speaking, shallots are cross-dressers who are often not equal to onions plus garlic. This flirtation is garnish. There is a joint in the east with layers that men go to cry. Perhaps this writing is an exotic dance. Garlic belongs everywhere except morning breath. A young girl hates poetry because the language is too flowery, but she accepts the scribblings of a lover. A dried flower is also a spice. And is this wilting not also a poem? This poem may be everything you know about godliness. A body is fundamentally flesh. Sometimes heaven is not a dwelling place. It is only an aroma, like shallot, like onions, like garlic. Let's end all prayers here. Can everyone still hear me?
Yeah, everything sounds wonderful. This is brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'll be reading the next poem. So I'm enjoying reading, but at the same time, I can't see my face on my Zoom for some reason. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Okay. So my
We
next
can still hear though.
poem, okay, great. Okay, so my next poem is titled Pollination. I'm a writer who loves nature as well. So anything that involves looking.
Rosaline, I think we've lost you. Could you unmute? I think there was a strange sort of process there. We've just lost you.
Oh, can you hear
Ah,
me?
there we go. I can hear you now. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to be reading another poem titled Pollination. So I was saying that I'm a writer who is very involved with nature. I like the leaves. I like looking outside. I feel like my environment influences my work. So that's how the poem Pollination was born. And also in primary school, which is like a core memory of mine and something been that has centered my work in a sense. I remember in I think basic science class, we talked about pollination, about the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma. Please don't be confused. I'm an art student. All I know about flowers and nature is just because of my poetry. So take this with a pinch of salt. But yeah, just learning about that and informed the writing of this poem and my work in general. So pollination, footprints graze the earth in silence, solitary walks, a muted green, the hue of silence. I am no different than a startled snail. I crawl into my body in silence. In my garden, weed and produce are one and the same. Bell peppers and clovers grow roots in silence. I am like a tree planted in the middle of the river, isolated. Currents move estuaries in silence. Petrichor leaves no one the language to read the rainbows. Colors become blessings in silence. Sundays are for white, bare feet kissing holy ground. Sin is always confessed in silence. I bury seeds only to resurrect them into devouring. Sometimes I build only to tear down in silence. I cling to myself like a seedless grapefruit, no space for pollination. A rose, not sees her thorns in silence. So the next poem I'm going to read is a poem that is very precious to me. I love all the poems in my chapbook equally, but this stands out to me because I wanted to write about salt, and I wanted to write specifically about the significance of salt to people in Eastern Nigeria during the Biafran War. And I think there was a period in the war where the people of Biafra no longer had salt to cook. And there is a specific village in southeastern Nigeria. There's a river in the village that it was discovered that the salinity in the water was great. So you would boil the water and it would become salt. And that village single-handedly distributed salt to all of Eastern Nigeria. And in doing this research, I realized how involved my family was in the process. And that's what bettered this poem. Please let me know if you can still hear me. I feel like my audio is a bit wonky.
No, everything sounds very good.
Okay. So the poem is titled Gospel According to Salt Lake. And it goes, during, before, and after the Biafran War, Okposi supplied salt to all of Eastern Nigeria. 2 hunters find body of water. 2 hunters stoop for drink. 2 hunters almost die from too much salt. 2 hunters run to village. Man like them argue. Man like them want all glory. Man like them want to name a lake after them. Hunter men ask God to name the first man among them. They ask, who found a lake first? God demands a daughter to answer. Trade by barter, brine for a body, saline for a soul. One hunter man offers his daughter, and yet lake remained a lake and a pond, but never his name. A lake, like a daughter, does not dry. A lake was war. A lake seasoned a civil war. The truth is, salt was once water in a lake. Daughters cooked pots of water till they became salt. An old daughter said foreigners drove to a lake and fetched lake water. Foreigners' wheels stiffened and steering froze. Old daughter says lake belongs only to them. Old daughter says lake water cannot be fetched by others. Old daughter says lake water can cure kwashiorkor. Old daughter says lake water will flatten fat stomach. Old daughter says lake water will heal the world. Lake water must do whatever old daughter wills it. Old daughter bends and treks long miles for lake water. Old daughter lights firewood and fans flames till lake water boils on end. Old daughter is tired and it is young daughter's time of the month every day. God says bleeding daughters are taboo. Lake never dries. A world is waiting for lake water to become salt. Hunter men don't know how to boil lake water to become salt. Old daughter dies and young daughter keeps on bleeding. Lake water disappears. I think also in this poem, I wanted to paint what happens when we exclude women from very flimsy reasons and very normal reasons like having a period, right? And yeah, that's what informed the ending of this poem. And speaking of periods and bleeding, because I believe strongly that we should make this a normal conversation. Periods are normal, women bleed, and that's totally normal. So I wrote, and I think it's also important that we talk about the realities of it and what women have to go through every month, some more than others. And that's what informed the next poem. It's titled A Bloody Penchant. And it goes, to damn my body and conquer the world, to make my waist into fennel and pretend the current flowing between my legs is not a madhouse. I go to church. There is prophecy about painless periods. Undoing is this red song billowing between what is divine and what may be an overflow. Since the Holy Book says God has a penchant for women in blood and pain, I move to the altar. I go to make my case. I kneel and I say, God, the Brahmaputra River in India turns blood red for 3 days in June every year. Gracious God, why give a woman's rest to a river? But when a woman's body is an amenagogue, petition is merely a blood clot. My uterus is a bounty hunter, and every month I must pay for not bringing a newborn into this world. My lining breaks down in protest. I bleed and bleed and bleed. The next poem is titled Everywhere. And this is a poem I wrote because of grief. And this is where the title of the chapbook came from, A Body Inspires. I lost an aunt, and it has been one of the most painful losses of my entire life, especially because of the circumstances surrounding it. And so I'm happy that poetry gives me the language to utilize her. Poetry gives me the language to talk about this grief. So the poem is titled Everywhere, and it goes, to my dearest aunt, Onyemachi. Your absence aches more than a skin tearing. Just yesterday in a dream, we unwrapped bouillon cubes. Your nail polish still reminds me of tomatoes. I want to write prayers like you, but the supplication save your life. If you were anything like God, I will hunt for myrrh and aloes, embalm your body in spice, and wait for you to rise on any third day. It's 4 years going on forever. And in this poem, you do not exist with breath in your lungs. In another poem, your whiff will be absent. Remembering you is a crosswise movement, and my grief, a pit-long devotion. If memory were a thread, I would weave every recollection of your life into a living, breathing thing. Can everyone still hear me? I'm hoping.
Everything is sounding incredible. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. I would be reading another poem. It's titled I Am Wanted Everywhere. So I wrote this poem some years ago. It still made it into the chapbook, I think, because of, I think the way it's honest, it interrogates the body in an interesting way and sees the body as a site of resistance to everything that's been thrown at it. Also, it's a poem I wrote after a certain Mr. Somebody tried to fumble me. But it's titled I Am Wanted Everywhere. And I wrote this too after post-massacre psych evaluation by Abu Bakr Sadiq, because I love that poem so much. It's a poem I think you should read. Um, Nobody asked me what it took them to slice me open. There is a scarf I hold on to when the crucifixion starts. I let blood and water mix like wine. And when they ask me who tried to kill me or where the weapons are, I will show them your tongue. Tell them your closed mouth is the sheath and your smell, another kind of crimson. Or don't you remember the mockery on that November morning, how my tight dress became a circus as you danced around me in blasphemies, saying there is no room for a belly as big as mine in a dress as colorful as that. Sometimes shaming is as potent as a bullet, and one shot is all it takes. Do you know death has a fashion sense? It is a garment of morphed wishes, the one that wears itself on me when my lover says, we cannot make love with candles because my body is not shaped like an hourglass. Not all kinds of deaths lock you in a grave. Some of it leaves you roaming in the world. I don't know what it means to have a deathless body because every day a part of me dies intestate. My mother is afraid another man will shoot me for living in this body. I too am afraid to exist. So I launch a police report. I am writing my statement and the policeman says I should show him evidence of attempted murder. I start to undress and show him my love handles. I tell him this is where the conspiracy began. I tell him my extra skin is their ammunition and my cellulite their shotgun, but he does not believe. I tell him to file a restraining order against the world because I do not know to which extent this body will grow, but he does not understand. So I dress and I say, look, look, look. It all started from the size of my stomach. Now I am wanted everywhere. Okay. So the next poem I'm about to read, um, next poem I'm about to read is not in the chapbook, but it's a poem that I really love, and it's titled A Lineage of Diagrams. And it goes, My soul is a Venn diagram, an opening, a pretentious geoid, colored gray and sometimes fuchsia. My body, dense as the full moon, has the potential to become the universe. But on whose bones will the galaxy be built? Is a body not an equation, solving for a percentage of warmth in this cold world? Every bone on my body is eyes, every vein a pie chart trying to rotate like the sun. If I divide my body by 360 and I multiply it by my years, will I find my lucky number? Will there be someone whole enough to even me out? Is a soulmate not an odd thing? In this poem, I am trying to reconcile the origin of my body, the spirit as solution, the lineage as puzzle. I want to know at what point my soul will tire from my body. Is it from the gravity of my breasts or the sags of my hips? Is it from the gray of heartbreaks I could have evaded had I loved without my body? I am trying to see where I can return when my body stops feeling at home. If I call my body A and my soul B, does A and B mean a fusion born of heaven? Is N my soul, or is it something my life's baggage is too beastly to set free? And so the last poem I would read is titled A Brackish Silence. And so I wrote this poem. I had a poetry workshop with Clifton. I think he was winner of the Silliman Book Prize. I can't remember what year.
Did I mute
But
this in Jesus?
so, sorry, can you hear me?
No, we don't.
Okay. It's a poem I wrote in a poetry workshop with like amazing writers, and he made it to the chapbook because it's just a poem that I really like, and it's titled A Brackish Silence. And it goes, in your poetry workshop, the teacher unmutes himself and throws a word. He says, estuary, write a poem with estuary. You Google this coastal body of water, how this tidal mouth of a river is your nemesis. And prayer is a place where fresh water becomes salt water. You try to understand the translations on your body. The burrowing on your chin is how you hold an amen to light, knowing your supplications will remain unanswered. Hallelujah is a brackish stream of consciousness. Or how else does a mother raise her hands to God while offering her child an elbow? Silence is vernacular for loss because you asked your mother how many times you left her body before you became whole, and she said nothing. Instead, she unearthed herself and points to a river as pale as your skin. You stare at the conflation of water, and then you wonder what parts of you were made from algae. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Roseline. What an incredible reading and what a wide range of such powerful poems. You sketch the body so beautifully, and you sketch desire and blood and spirit in such gorgeous ways. And it was such a privilege to hear these poems. I'm going through so many of these comments. We were all we were fangirling and fan femming and fanboying and fan everything inside of these
Aw.
comments. Everyone, I'm going to read some of them. So pained, I have to go now. Can't wait to read your chapbook. Another one says, this collection is so fire. I so much want. Someone also
Aw.
said, I'm stealing, shaming is as potent as a bullet. Also incredible. And your language is so incredibly evocative and powerful and full of imagery. I thought it would be wonderful just to open up to anyone who has some questions for you. I'm sure uh, members of our audience have some questions after sharing such powerful poems. Um, just go ahead. You can just raise your hand, or if you're shy, you can just put in your question in the chat and I can read that for you. Just let me know. But go ahead. Just, I think inside of the thing, inside of one of the reactions, you can just raise your hand. And I'll make sure just to unmute, and you can either appear on video or just ask your question just sonically. Just to go
Yeah,
off,
and thank you,
yeah,
everyone. When I was
yeah.
reading, I couldn't see the chat on my screen for some reason. So just seeing the comments now, very beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone. I can't wait for you to read the whole thing. Your love is in there.
We have a question from Cynthia. Cynthia, go ahead.
Hi, Roseline. Hi, everybody. It's so nice listening to you read these poems. Honestly, I am totally getting the collection. Really, I really just want to have to sit with the words longer and read it again. It's really beautiful, and the way you read it just really brought it to life. It's really lovely. So, my question is, I'm particularly curious about the poems where you kind of like use pies to, kind of like embody the like how you like represent intimacy with spice and things like that. So I'm just curious about the process of writing this kind of poems. Like, how do you I guess my question is, how do you get inspired? Because for me, I would never have thought someone would be able to draw like a line from spice to intimacy, so how do you like come up with, is it like, are you eating and you just like, think like, what's your relationship with nature and spice, and how do you draw like this, how do you get the inspiration to bring literature to life from these things? I guess that's the question.
Yeah. Okay, very lovely question too. Yeah. I think for me, when it comes to nature and spice, I think it was something I discovered in hindsight, right? So I did the residency at Lotad, right? And I went in so this is about to be a long-winded answer. So I had applied to the residency before and I didn't get in. So the next year I wanted to apply, I saw the list of everything. They wanted fiction poetry, they wanted nature writing. And I just thought, what's that? And then I Googled nature writing and I'm like, oh, I already naturally just like looking at trees and whatever. So I'm like, okay, nature writing. And then I thought, because again, my mom she has a small garden, she's always, African moms, I think they're in the same WhatsApp group. So they're always very blend this sleep, this should help you sleep, this should heal you from whatever. And so I remember, I think the first non-fiction piece I wrote was about ugu, which is like vegetable pumpkin leaves, and grief. So it was like an essay or something. I remember just walking around the house and asking them at home, why are you blending this? What does it do? Like, I'm so confused. And then Googling, you'll be shocked the amount of things you find on Google. You see things about how people have associated leaves to desire, just different things. So everybody in my life at the time when I was making, so that was for Lotad. I put all those things together and then I put together my application to them. There was also something about desire. So I had like a neighbor who had like we both had tent leaves planted in our house, but like when ours wasn't growing or whatever, we'd go to the neighbor's house to plug it. And then the neighbor had like a fine son that I would always go and talk to. And so I just found the process of inhaling the scent leaves, plucking them, the whole process, and then the obvious crush that we had on each other. And so I went to Google the leaves and I realized for some people it signified some form of intimacy and desire, and people have used scent leaves in different ways. So that's how that came about. Long story. So when you're in a residency, you have expectations. You're there to write, right? So on the last day, I had to produce another non-fiction essay on leaves. And I couldn't. I was tired. And I remember that we had visited the Ebiri Gardens in Ghana. And so when we visited, they showed us a nutmeg tree. That poem didn't make it into this collection. I took it out last minute. So they took us to the garden and the tour guide started to talk to us about trees and how in the pollen, because there are two trees, two nutmeg trees, and they're walking us through how it bears fruit and how the female nutmeg tree needs the male nutmeg tree and the male, it was just so interesting. And so I wrote a poem on the last week of the residency as opposed to an essay. And I also went to Google and I realized there was a spice war in Indonesia and some other places. People literally killed people for spice. Like it was a full-blown war because of nutmeg. So I put the knowledge I had gathered from there, what I had found on Google, and I wrote after the nutmeg war. And I read it to everybody at the residency. And I just thought, wow, this is incredible. And I just thought, well, I written about nutmeg. So when APBF came, I already had a collection I wanted to send to them, but then I read it and I wasn't feeling anymore. And so I made a list of spices: salt, Maggi, pepper, cloves. Like, I was asking everybody about spice and meant something to them, called home. And then I started researching about them. And then started to ask people beyond research, what does it mean to you when there's no salt in food? What does it mean to you when there are no cloves? And why do you like garlic? Why is it in your stew? Why are you blending ginger, right? What do you use it for? You have a cold. Why are you drinking ginger and hot water? How does it make you feel? So I harassed everybody, and I wrote this in law school. My roommate was, because she was my first point of, so I was asking her, ask your friends, ask your mother, what does this mean to them? And then there's a poem in the chapbook about clovers and just how it has helped women. Oh, and there's something about cloves I found online, women using it to purge their uteruses of old and stale blood. And I found that very fascinating. Just anything that can help the ladies on their period. So that's how it was. That's how it came about, to be very honest. And since then, and going back to read previous things I had written, I realized I had been unconsciously writing about nature. I would read some essays I wrote in the past when I was 18, 19, and I'm seeing myself talking about leaves and spices. I just never knew. So I guess maybe it was inside, and the residency helped me to bring it out. But yeah. I hope that answered your question. I was yapping a lot.
Yes, that's 100% answered my question, and it's so very interesting to hear. I like exhaustiveness that you bring to your work. Asking people and really like going into history. That's something I'm also really trying to like, really tap into, like the historical context. Just random information and just putting it out there. That I find it really, now. Anytime I see any plant or any tree, I would think, oh my God, what's Roseline going to write about this plant? Like, that's just never going to leave my mind now. And like, I'm a pharmacist, so when I was in school, we had like different departments, and we had like pharmacology, pharmacognosy. The pharmacognosy department is all plants. That was my best department. So just in case you ever want to borrow, I have this big book. It's all plants. Yeah,
Yeah.
big book. It's like all plants. Then one of my favorites, like when we're learning about Atropa bellodina. I don't know if you've heard of that nine shade deadly plants, things like that.
Yeah.
I always found it very interesting. So like, I'm really interested in the work that you do, and I'm really like looking forward to reading your collection and like more of your works. Really good stuff here.
Yeah. I'm going to borrow that from you. I'm working on an essay that I don't know when I'll finish. So it's a collection of essays on leaves, just leaves. So yeah, I hope that that'll be
Yeah,
out soon.
sure. I'm always happy to lend this out. Yeah.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Amazing. Do we have anyone else that wants to ask a question? And if not, I know I have a question that I'm curious about. How is your practice as a or your knowledge of the law? How does that talk to your practice as a poet? Do you think of them as different hats, as different roles, or do they bleed into each other? Or are they mutually feeding passions?
Well, I don't necessarily well, to be honest, I read I am wanted everywhere, and there was police case and the law inside. So I think I think he finds his way. But they are two separate endeavors for me. I feel like poetry is a thing I've had to, well, I feel like poetry is my life. I have to write poetry to live, literally. But uh, poetry has been something that I have done, and I have seen law as something that's stopping me from doing poetry. Please, you can do both, but that's just how I felt. Like, I wanted to be over and done with law. So yeah, and I wanted to complete what I started. Nobody forced me to start the degree. I started it by myself. So it got so crazy, and I just thought you have to finish what you started. So even after uni, I'm like, okay, you have to go get called to the bar. So I just had to finish. African parents, they're like, we don't care if you want to be a poet, you want to be a writer, that's your business. But you see this degree, I'm so sorry to inform you that you're finishing it. So so I had to finish it, but I feel like there's separate parts of my life. I wrote this in the middle of, anybody who has been to Nigerian law school will tell you that it's not a place where it's a very jealous, you lose your mind, literally. But I wrote this chapbook in between, like I skipped classes for like some days because everywhere doesn't really give you like a long deadline. So I just thought, I have to submit something that makes sense. And for me, when it comes to like writing and submitting, I rather submit and not get any acceptance than not submit at all sometimes, right? Because you miss like 100% of the chances you don't take. But yeah, they're different. They're different. And because I'm realizing now that I draw parallels, the Igbo L in my tongue, but you get the message in my work a lot. So yeah, I've been dancing around the idea of really studying an aspect of law and mining poetry from it because I believe poetry is everywhere. And that's something is unconsciously, I don't really like law like that. I'm a lawyer, but like it's not something, it's something I'm glad that I have because I know my rights and I can defend one or two people. But other than that, yeah, it's a separate endeavor.
Thank you. That's also so illuminating. I'm always so curious about people that have a distinct practice from a creative writing practice. So thanks for sharing. It looks like Ed has a question.
Hey, Roseline, I loved your reading. I don't want to sort of, some people have already said some of the things that were in my head too. Because there's a lot going on in the poems, but I think it's not just the lens of spice that's fascinating for me. It's actually your titles and your poems because they're just these inviting gateways into the poems. And yeah, I just wanted to know if you wanted to say more about those. Do you end up with those at the end of the poem? Are they sometimes the start of the poem? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, titles, it depends, but mostly titles come to me before I write the poems. I think that's odd. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes I hear the title before I write the poem. And I have like an unofficial Google Doc of just titles of things that I don't know when I'm going to use. But sometimes I write stuff and I don't know what the title is. And then, but I think titles come easy to me, to be very honest. Like if it's hard, it just take me looking at the work for a few minutes and figuring it out. Most times it's the title. And for this one, I knew I was writing about spices and nature, so just weaving the title wasn't so hard. Now the titles in the chapbook have maybe a damage in clubs, you know, Salt Lake, just things. But yeah.
And the poem with lineage, I don't know if you want to say more about that poem.
Right.
Lineage.
Yeah, let me what's that other poem again? Sorry. A lineage
No,
in, let me see.
my
Like what's
soul is a diagram.
a lineage of diagrams.
Yeah.
Right. It was just me experimenting. I can't remember which poet I read. I think it will actually be Abu Bakr Sadiq. I like his work is very experimental. I feel like he does wonders on the page. And I know this is not an experimental poem, but like I think it was what motivated me to write this because I'm connecting Venn diagrams and to color, to the moon, to the universe, to the body, just being able to mash up different things. I feel like the possibilities in poetry is endless, and um, there's no such thing really as a basic poem. But I'm trying to. There's a state I want to take my poetry to. I'm still mapping out what that is. But yeah, that's what I was experiment. I was trying to experiment. That's how I wrote the lineage in diagrams.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Ed. It seems like there's another question from Cynthia, but in the chat, Cynthia asks, do your titles often change from the original vision?
Oh, no, I don't think it does. If I title something pink and I start to write and I discover I'm writing about blue, I can change the title. It just doesn't. I think what's happening is that I'm a collector. I like collecting words. So if I read something and somebody says something nice and it sounds nice, I just note it down. So just putting titles together sounds nice. So it can help me start something, but I'm not tied to it. I don't think it changes the vision of the work. Although sometimes something would come, like I would sleep and I wake up and I would just think maybe yellow trees. And I will know maybe I would think very well. I'm like, oh, maybe I drove past a yellow bush or a flower yesterday, and I'll know that maybe that's what's calling me. That's the poem that it's calling me. And then sometimes, yeah, but it doesn't change the vision essentially.
Beautiful. I'm seeing that this is also feels like a natural spot just to take a little 10-minute break, and then we can come back at 8:30, and then from there we can open up into our open mic session. Anyone is open and free and welcome to share work. It can be your work, it can be the work of someone that you admire. But I highly encourage you just to share. We're just a group of people that just really love poetry. And just before you go on your break, thank you again, Roseline, for an incredible reading. It was just so wonderful just to listen to your poems. And see you back, everyone, in 10 minutes if you'd like to stay for our open mic. Grab your tea, grab your water, stretch, and we'll see you soon.